I have a different mindset from what is prevailing. Of course, what is prevailing at the moment is the infrastructures are not encouraging. That's just the truth. However, I have a very different mindset from what is prevailing, the negativity that is prevailing. I did a research and I realized that most of the stuff, the development, for example, America, for example, many of the infrastructures they are enjoying today were developed by private individuals. They were developed by private entities. It wasn't the government. It was private entities. For example, look at the railway that became a huge stuff in the 19th century. It was private individuals. Look at telephone. It was private individuals. Any major infrastructure, at a point, it was Cornelius Vanderbilt that had the only railroad into New York at a point in the, it should be in the 19th century, 18 something. He was can you imagine, a private individual. So what I'm saying in essence is that we need to remove that kind of limitation from our minds.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
I was at Covenant University some days ago, I think last week. And, I was asking my guide, the person that was my tour guide, I was asking, so how do you guys generate, how do you overcome this epileptic power supply that we're all having to face in this, in Lagos? I said, the guy said, no, we don't use that power supply. We generate our own. I said, he said, we generate, and it passes everywhere. Yes. And we have it 24/7. Can you imagine? I was dazed. This is what we are talking about. Solutions. This is why we are here. Enough of complaining. Oh, the government is this. The government is. How many things can the government do? It is us, individuals, entities that will provide the solutions. So let's focus on solutions. Enough of complaining. So by God's grace, that's what I'm focusing on. That's what I'm developing capacity every single day. I'm developing my capacity to be able to generate surplus value and to add value on a global dimension. And that's what every one of us has got to do. Enough of complaining about, of course, the electric supply is there, the internet supply is there, but it was individuals that did this too. Even the internet that we're enjoying today, it was individuals. The likes of Main One, Glow, that laid these fiber optics cables through, I think Main One has about 7,000 kilometers of fiber through 4 different countries. Portugal, Ivory Coast, there's this one other country, and then back to Nigeria. So enough of that. We need to just take the bull by the horn and then provide these solutions, solve these issues. See, going into business is an adventure. Honestly, I wouldn't say it's difficult. I'm trying to use an empowering word. It is very, very interesting. No dull moment. So be ready for an adventure. I remember when I wanted to go into business and I was praying. And one of the things I got was that no matter what happens, don't relent. So when I had that, no matter what happens, so that helped me to brace myself up for challenges. So it's going to be very challenging. I tell them it's going to be very challenging. Another thing I want to help them to decipher is this business. Why do you want to start it? They need to gain clarity. They need to be clear. Because when the challenges come, it is your reason, that purpose that will keep you. Honestly, that will keep you grounded. A lot of people that I started with this journey with years ago, they're nowhere to be found. They've dropped by because of the challenges. I remember when I was starting then, we started as motivational speakers in those days. We started as speakers, as a public speaker and all that. A lot of people, they've dropped by, because they didn't have a strong why. Like that's why this Simon Sinek said, always start with why. So I want them to start. What is your reason for going to business? And then the second thing I want to ask is, this business, is it in alignment with your core? Because if you are doing something because of money, I remember I just finished a book by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. His memoir on starting Nike. And one of the things I realized was that Nike, starting that shoe company, was in alignment with his call, or calling. It was a calling for him. And one of the advice he gave, he said if we were to advise young business people, he said he would advise them to pursue businesses related to their calling. So that's one of the things. So the first thing is, why are you going into that business? Number two, brace yourself up for challenges. Number three is that business in alignment with your core? Honestly, I believe that business is a calling. Honestly, I stand to be corrected. For example, let me share this example with you. I went to a place. I went to Canaan Land years ago for one of the conferences, and there was this lady that was selling pure water. She was selling pure water by the roadside, and then she was fidgeting as though it was an Herculean task. No, people were, okay, please sell me pure water. So I think it was those days they were selling pure water for $5 then. It was very cheap then. But yes, she was fidgeting. The first thing that came to mind was that this business is this lady's calling. Another example is, I have a client that I'm working with at the moment. She's into business. So when we're talking about core, she opened up to me. She said that actually it is her husband that is pushing her into business. That left to her, she wants to go back to normal 9-to-5 job. That she knows inside of her that she's an executive working under a company. That she's just doing this business because her husband says that the best way to build wealth is to have your own business. But she doesn't have the passion for it. So that's what I'm saying. It is a calling. You've got to discover yourself. That's one of the things that working with a coach does. That's one of the things that working with an advisor does. They help you to remove. That's why I said that one of the things I do is I help people to chart their wealth costs. That's what I mean when I talk about charting their wealth costs. To help them to really be clear about their calling, what their calling, what their essence is on earth. Everybody has an assignment. Everybody that God created is created for a purpose. So the first thing is, what is your purpose? And how is that business in alignment with that purpose? How will that business help you to further achieve that purpose? If there's a disalignment or a misalignment, it will rub off, because negatively it will rub off on the wrong side. And I suffered this too. I was pursuing business, pursuing money, and then I was taking 2 steps forward and 5 steps backwards. It didn't work until I aligned with my calling. I discovered my calling. It wasn't easy. I discovered it and I aligned with it. And then it is the opportunities that are now seeking me. This opportunity that we have now, did I lobby for it? I didn't lobby for it. The opportunity came because I'm in alignment with my calling, a perfect alignment by the grace of God with my calling. So that's what I want to advise people. You need to discover your area of calling. Discover your calling, and it's very, sometimes it's even staring us in the eyes, but we're just blind to see it. The things that you do effortlessly, things that people struggle with. For example, one of the things I realized was that I could write. I realized that I could talk. I realized that I could teach. These things were just pointing and I realized I was good with money. All of these things were pointing to my calling, but I was blind to them until I sat down, I took time, I prayed, and I did some soul searching. And then I was able to find, okay, this is my area of calling. And the truth is, I must say this, if you are yet to discover your calling, keep doing what you are doing at the moment. But let them give you feedbacks. Once you are realizing that you are struggling in that area, for example, now there's this stuff I watched yesterday. This guy said that he's an Indian living in America today. He said when he was very young, Bill Gates came to India, and then they went to see him. And on their way back, his grandfather told him, he said, grandson, when you grow up, go into technology. That is how you can be rich as Bill Gates. He said from that point on, it was fired on. He began to pursue technology. He said he was struggling in it, but because of what his grandfather said, he kept at it. He said he noticed that anytime he took any course in performing arts, he was always scoring A. But in the technology stuff, the courses related to technology, he was scoring C. He was just scoring above average. But he pursued it, he continued because of his grandfather. To cut the long story short, he got into Microsoft. He got into Microsoft as an intern. He said on a particular day, Bill Gates, had a meeting with all the interns, the new intake, and then they went to meet him at his house. He said everybody was happy. They were shaking his hands. He said he was the only person that didn't shake Bill Gates' hand. He said because he knew right there and then that, because he had gotten to the peak, he had gotten into Microsoft itself. He said, but he felt this vacuum inside of him, that there was this vacuum. So is this all? That was the question. Is this all? Bill Gates is face to face with me now, but I'm not feeling fulfilled. To cut the long story short, he left that job. And he went to pursue stuff that had to do with performing arts, that had to do with this area of calling.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewanfo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.